Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 16th webinar on a treatise on cosmic fire. A big shout out again to Rose Bates for providing these rare photos of Alice. Oh, and by the way, last time in the chat box here, let me get past this stuff for a minute. In the chat box, somebody noticed that this photo is not of Alice, but of Alice's daughter. And she's right. I checked up on it, and the photo was taken in the 60s. So, yeah, there is a family resemblance, but this is not Alice. However, this is here. Okay. So this webinar series is available on macara.us under the subheadings Moria Federation Webinars, MF Webinars, then webinar series in progress as shown here. All episodes of this, the Secret Teachings of All Ages, and the Secret Doctrine series are also available on YouTube. Just do a search for Francis Donald and the webinar series you wish to view. You can register for any of these webinars on the home page of moriafederation.com up in the upper left-hand corner. Okay, so last time we took a look at 8 quote-unquote fundamental hypotheses, these are the first 3, concerning the 7 subplanes of the cosmic physical plane, with special emphasis on the Buddhic plane. We then took a look at a series of footnotes referencing the secret doctrine on ether, matter, and energy, and the creative power of nature. DK then continued his theme on the potency of fourness, which we've been looking at for quite a while now, and we will continue to do so, emphasizing its utility as a point of transition from out of a lower into a higher state of awareness. We then learned about transference onto the soul ray, and at a later stage, transference onto the monadic ray, again facilitated by the 4th subplane for the soul ray, facilitated by the mental subplane, and for the monadic ray by the 4th subplane of the monadic plane. This was followed by a teaching on a series of syntheses initiated by 1st, 2nd, and 3rd ray monads successfully. The 1st ray monads synthesized the highest subplane of the Atmic, 2nd ray monads the 2nd subplane of the Buddhic plane, and 3rd ray monads possibly, just as an extension, the 3rd subplane of the mental plane. We then took a look at the 3 hierarchical offices, the Mahachohan, the Bodhisattva, the Manu, and their hierarchical interconnections indicated by these lines of interrelatedness. DK then articulated the function of each 4th subplane, emphasizing their ability to repolarize the consciousness of the disciple. And we were on this last section at the end of the last webinar. So the next sentence to consider is, on the Buddhic plane, the 4th cosmic ether, the heavenly men, or the grouped consciousness of the human and deva monads, begins to function. The Buddhic plane represents the 3rd or form aspect of a heavenly man. Thus, it is where his etheric centers are located. 2 of these centers, not etheric centers, but centers, being the human and Devic kingdoms. DK gives more info on the link between the heavenly man and the human and deva monads later in TCF. Could we get a reader, please? Mikhail.
Yep. Heike.
Perhaps some light may be thrown upon the obscurity of the matter by the realization that just as the Logos has, in the non-sacred planets, the correspondence to the permanent atoms in the human being, so the middle evolution between these two, God and man, is the heavenly man, whose body is made up of human and deva monads, and who has likewise his permanent atoms. Always, the three higher principles can be distinguished in importance from the four lower.
Thank you, Heike. So DK includes this material here in order to emphasize the parallel between the systemic and the cosmic ethers as they relate to the human and planetary etheric centers. It'd be interesting to know just which planetary etheric centers are located on which of the subplanes of the Buddhic plane, but we don't have that information like we do with the human centers. Okay. Next, and to escape eventually from the cosmic etheric planes, talking about a heavenly man still. So just as a human being escapes onto the astral plane by means of the fourth systemic etheric, as shown on left, a heavenly man escapes onto the cosmic astral plane by means of the fourth cosmic etheric, the Buddhic, as shown here on right. The parallels stay in place. The as above, so below idea stays intact. And finally, when these three cosmic ethers are mastered, the functioning is perfected. Polarization is centered in the monadic vehicles, and the seven heavenly men have achieved their goal. So these three cosmic ethers are home to the triad of monadic vehicles, and thus to the three ray energies, will, love, wisdom, and activity, as well as to the human monads conditioned by these three ray energies. As we ourselves in the body of these heavenly men, our transformation leads to theirs. Also, when an initiate achieves consciousness on the three cosmic etheric planes, he or she gains what DK calls planetary consciousness. This is the realm of planetary awareness, of planetary consciousness. And these lower subplanes are the reflection of this reality, and they apply to a human's level of consciousness. By the way, anytime you want to ask a question or make a comment, just raise your hand, and Mikhail will call on you. Okay, next up we have a concluding statement underscoring the parallel between a disciple and a heavenly man. Could we get a reader for this short paragraph?
And Veronica.
Hello.
Hi.
On these etheric levels, therefore, the logos of our the logos of our system repeats as a grand totality the experiences of his tiny reflections on the physical plane. He coordinates his cosmic body and attains continuity of consciousness when he has mastered the three cosmic ethers.
Okay. Remember that the act of coordinating on both the micro and macrocosmic levels entails achieving equilibrium between the greater and the lesser, between spirit and matter, which is the last step before passing into pralaya, which is the abstraction of the higher condition. Right? Same thing happens for personality who's trying to achieve soul consciousness, right? You achieve this point of equilibrium, it's represented by Libra, of course, And that neutralizes the barrier that allows you then to pass into that next stage of consciousness. He's now talking about, the macrocosmic shifts from the higher etheric planes up into the astral plane. So what does continuity of consciousness look like for a heavenly man? We can only guess. But if we project the human condition, it would mean awareness of all previous incarnations. That's one of the aspects of continuity of consciousness that comes to us after the third initiation. So if there's a parallel, then for solar logos, that would mean a awareness of his participation and role in all previous solar systems. That, like I said, if the as above, so below applies, then he would have this extraordinarily deep vision into his past incarnations. Okay, of course, we don't really know for sure what continuity of consciousness means at a logoic level, but it's possible that that would be one of the results of it. Okay, next up, can we get a reader, please?
Janet.
Hi.
It
is to be observed that just as in man, the dense physical body in its three grades, dense, liquid, and gaseous, is not recognized as a principle. So in the cosmic sense, the physical, dense, astral, liquid, and mental, gaseous levels are likewise regarded as non-existing. And the solar system has its location on the fourth ether. The seven sacred planets are composed of matter of this fourth ether. And the seven heavenly men, whose bodies they are, function normally on the fourth plane of the system, Buddhic, or the fourth cosmic ether.
Thank you. Okay. Wait a minute here. I'm getting ahead of myself. So first up, it is to be observed that just as in man, the dense physical body in its three grades, dense, liquid, and gaseous, is not recognized as a principle. So that's the main subject of this section. So in the cosmic sense, the physical, dense, astral, liquid, and mental gaseous levels are likewise regarded as non-existing. Okay, the left-hand chart shows the dense physical body of a planetary logos. Here, the lower three subplanes. The right-hand chart, that of a human being, these lowest three subplanes here. Neither of which are considered to be a principle from their respective levels of consciousness. This is why achieving Buddhic consciousness is the goal of all initiates, because one frees oneself from unprincipled substance and thus participates in the consciousness of the logos. So what is unprincipled substance? It is substance that is incapable of demonstrating the energetic qualities of this solar system. Its sole ability and purpose is to adhere to etheric substance. That's what we've been reading about for the last many pages, how the dense physical adheres to the etheric body. That's its sole purpose. It generates no creative energy of its own and is therefore considered to be, quote unquote, unprincipled. Next up, and their solar system has its location on the fourth ether. The seven sacred planets are composed of matter of this fourth ether, and the seven heavenly men whose bodies they are function normally on the fourth plane of the system, the Buddhic or the fourth cosmic ether. On this fourth cosmic etheric plane, also called the plane of life, logoic vitality demonstrates through its etheric centers, just as a human being's vitality demonstrates through its etheric centers found on the four etheric subplanes of the physical plane. DK's statement, the 7 sacred planets are composed of matter of this fourth ether, is interesting since, except for Vulcan, these planets also have dense physical bodies. So, what's up with that? Well, we might surmise that DK is referencing their etheric bodies, the true living forms of these heavenly men, which are composed of Buddhic substance. Just as on Earth, matter of the 3 lowest planes, including all that is outwardly visible, would not, from the consciousness of a heavenly man, would not be considered a principle. So they don't have to be invisible in order to participate in this stage of awareness, of having their essential selves on the fourth cosmic ether. Next up, can we get a reader, please?
Kirsten.
When man has attained the consciousness of the Buddhic plane, he has raised his consciousness to that of the heavenly man in whose body he is a cell. This is achieved at the 4th initiation, the liberating initiation. At the 5th initiation, he ascends with the heavenly man on to the 5th plane from a human standpoint, the atmic. And at the 6th, he has dominated the 2nd cosmic ether and his monadic consciousness and continuity of function. At the 7th initiation, he dominates the entire sphere of matter contained in the lowest cosmic plane, escapes from all etheric contact, and functions on the cosmic astral plane.
Thank you. So first, when man has attained the consciousness of the Buddhic plane, he has raised his consciousness to that of the heavenly man in whose body he is a cell. In relation to the idea of principle, the disciple enters into the lowest principled substance of the planetary logos, and thus partakes of the living energy of this solar system. This tabulation gives us more info about the Buddhic plane, about this level. Can we get a reader, please?
Miri. Are you there, Miri?
I'll read. The Buddhic plane, or 4th cosmic ether, is the plane whereon the sacred planets function. Man will eventually function, freed from the triple lower man. C. The true meaning of the word divine or Hermaphrodite is there to be comprehended. D. It is predominantly the plane of life force and one of the planes of generation. E. Here man will for the first time understand and utilize his relationship with the devas. F. It will see the fruition of the combined evolutionary process of the two solar systems. G. It is the plane from whence all planetary avatars emanate. H. The heavenly men take the first initiation on this plane. I. On this plane, the true inner significance of the sun is apprehended. TCF 627.
Thank you. It's Fred, wasn't it? I think it was Fred.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay, so why are the true meaning of the words divine hermaphrodite comprehended on the Buddhic plane? Well, that's connected with this idea that the disciple will, for the first time, understand and utilize his relationship with the devas, because this is where the veils drop and the deva kingdom is perceived, and in that there comes the beginning of an interrelationship where which at the time of the sixth initiation, one actually becomes, the initiate himself becomes the divine hermaphrodite. But at this point, at the fourth initiation, the concept is comprehended and the goal of that union is perceived, right? Yeah, this is quite a list, right? This is the plane from whence all planetary avatars emanate. They have their source on this plane. That's interesting. Okay, we could add to this list the fact that the ashrams of the masters are found on the Buddhic plane, the hierarchy basically, and thus it marks the medium level of consciousness of the hierarchy. This is the level of consciousness that is pervades the ashrams of the hierarchy. Okay, but what is Buddhic consciousness? In raised initiations, DK calls it persistent, conscious, spiritual awareness and a state of pure reason. In telepathy, in the etheric vehicle, he calls it magnetized consciousness. And throughout his works, he calls the Buddhic consciousness intuitional and Christ consciousness. I saw a hand go up.
Yvonne.
Francis, it's Yvonne.
Hi.
On this number H, the heavenly man take the first initiation on this plane, on the Buddhic plane. So the heavenly man is the planetary logos, right? So
Right.
where is he before that?
Well, it's a question of conscious awareness. He's still there. He's still at that plane, but his it's just in the same way that we take our initiation while in form on the mental plane. He takes his first initiation on the Buddhic plane, right? But it's going to be instituted from much higher sources, of course. It's just this is, you could say, the body of the heavenly man, the etheric body of the heavenly man that receives this first initiation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's sort of analogous to what we're doing.
It is. It's absolutely analogous to what we're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, anything else? Anyone else? Okay, next up, this is achieved at the fourth initiation. He's back talking about human being again. The most notable achievement of this initiation is that the initiate permanently escapes from the personality ring pass knot on the fourth subplane of the mental plane and thus enters into life more abundant. Hence the term liberating initiation. After this, there's no necessity to incarnate because all the work has been done. There's nothing to be gained, no experience to be had in the three lower worlds. And this fourth initiate is truly released. In terms of the centers, the base of the spine, the solar plexus, the heart, and the throat have been synthesized into the seven head centers. That's what's going on as a result of the fourth initiation. Also, quote, at the fourth initiation, the force of the logos of the fourth ray is a vital factor. It is through the application of the rod of initiation that his life energy is applied to the initiate, or the electrical force that emanates from him is geometrically circulated through certain centers, producing the necessitated stimulation. So why Mercury at this particular initiation? In esoteric astrology, DK says, Mercury expresses the fourth ray energy, which is Buddhic, intuitional, and expressive of the Christ, as Mercury and the Sun are one. Note the alignment of the fourth subplane and the fourth ray and the fourth initiation. Next, at the fifth initiation, he ascends with the heavenly man onto the fifth plane from the human standpoint, the Atmic. Ascending with the heavenly man suggests that the initiate is participating in planetary consciousness. Can we get a reader for this passage from Rays and Initiations about the fifth initiation?
Minnie.
Yes, love and intelligence are now perfectly developed in him, the fifth initiate. Though their expression and emphasis may vary according to his race, he is aware of the fact of the will or of the first divine aspect, with its true qualities veiling a third of destruction and of purpose. He is becoming active on the second plane of our planetary life, the monadic plane, and that great center of life, Shambhala, is having a definite vibratory effect upon him. Also, and this will be the incomprehensible to you, he is becoming sensitive to a range of energies and influences which can now be registered by him, owing to his increasing monadic polarization and his contact with Shambhala. The cosmic astral plane becomes, for the master, a definite objective. He is beginning to develop a great sensitivity to that level of awareness, but consciousness of that within the planetary life, as he knows it, prevents him from registering this energy of pure cosmic love as he later will. Raise an initiation.
Thank you. So it's interesting up here, it says that there's two qualities of this will aspect, right, which are destruction and purpose, which together veil a third. And this seems to be an unrevealed quality of this first aspect. Interesting. So, just keep in mind, DK is at this level. He is striving for this level of understanding. Okay. Next, and at the sixth, he has dominated the second cosmic ether and has monadic consciousness and continuity of function. So at the sixth initiation, the pilgrim returns from his long journey and re-becomes one with the monad. The prodigal son truly returns home at the sixth initiation. Later in Treatise on Cosmic Fire, DK says, when the monad has circled through all disintegrating forms and has achieved the sixth initiation, it is resolved into its primal monadic source, and the five lesser sheaths are destroyed. Next, at the seventh initiation, He dominates the entire sphere of matter contained in the lowest cosmic plane, escapes from all etheric contact, and functions on the cosmic astral plane. In that same passage from TCF, DK continues. Can we get a reader, please?
So,
At the seventh, oops.
That's right.
At the seventh initiation, he has power on all the seven planes and within the entire number of schemes. All the sacred words are then his, and he can work in matter of all grades, sound all notes, and control all types of force. He stands ready then to guide the life to regions outside the solar sphere of influence.
This last sentence is interesting. That this is the indwelling life of which he is now so abundantly aware. And the form aspect, the seventh initiate, the form aspect, is actually then guides the life, guides that indwelling life to regions outside the solar sphere. These are the 6 cosmic paths that at that time he must take once you've taken the 7th. Actually, the Christ is holding back on finishing the 7th initiation in order to be an avatar for the Aquarian age. And the Buddha is right on the verge, either right on the verge or he has moved on. We don't really know yet. In DK's time, he was giving us 8 minutes at the time of the Wesak festival, focusing on humanity. But we don't know if that's still the case. Certainly that 8 minutes is going to be used for a powerful inundation of humanity with shambolic vibration, whether or not it's the Buddha actually dispensing it. But as of the time of the writing of these books, it was the Buddha. And he is also at that same cusp of the 7th initiation, because after the 7th, you're really compelled to move to the onto one of the 6 cosmic paths, the 7th being Earth's service, which these 2 have been participating in for millennia. Okay. Next up, can we get a reader, please?
Robert,
The past solar system saw the surmounting of the 3 lowest cosmic physical planes, viewed from the matter standpoint, and the coordination of the dense threefold physical form in which all life is found: dense matter, liquid matter, gaseous matter. A correspondence may be seen here in the work achieved in the first 3 root races.
Thanks, Robert. So this suggests that the early root races recapitulate the stages of progress made in the previous solar system, just as we recapitulate the progress we've made in previous lives during the first 28 years of each of our incarnations. We rebuild the physical, the astral, and the mental body and capacity, and then and then we unify it as a personality expression. Well, the same thing happens through the first 3 root races, interestingly. So you see the close correlation between these different bodies. Did I see a hand go up?
yeah, Jerry.
Yes, I have a question about the 7th initiation, and I understand and appreciate what you said about the Buddha and the Lord Maitreya. And are there other what would be examples of a 7th degree initiate in our operating within our planetary logos? For
Well,
instance,
they would all
Buddha.
they would have all have to have come from previous systems. So you would have, for instance, those beings connect in Shambhala working with um, the planetary logos with Sanat Kumara, um, which we aren't aware of necessarily, but those who he works with and through. None of the hierarchical members that are listed, from the Manu, who is said to be a sixth initiate, and the Christ, working on the seventh, and the Mahachohan, also probably a sixth initiate, not seventh, because remember, you're, what do I know? But according to the writings, one is compelled to move beyond the solar ring past not at that point, because you've become, as he says here, you've mastered anything that can be gained in this ring past not of this solar system has been mastered. All grades of matter, all the notes, all the sacred words have become familiar, been mastered. That's on every planet in the scheme, including having to do with the physical sun. So that's why we wouldn't have known examples, because they've left, they move on at that point. There could be beings in Shambhala associated with this initiation, but not that I know of,
So
yeah.
would it be fair to say then that even Sanat Kumara would
No.
not be a seventh degree initiate?
No, that wouldn't be fair to say, because he's on a planetary scale of initiation rather than a human scale of initiation, and they're quite different. So he's working on his cosmic initiations rather than the physical, right? And
Okay.
so one of the paths is to become a planetary logos, and you do, and it's one of the two highest of the six paths. And if you can imagine the incredible amount of work that has to be done from becoming a seventh initiate in the human scale and actually becoming a planetary logos. And as far as I know, there's no information that I've read anyway about bridging this gap, except for it's listed as one of the paths. And then
Yes.
there's a further path of absolute sonship, which suggests becoming a solar logos. And one would think that, a preliminary path for that would be to become a planetary logos, but there's not a whole lot said about any of those highest paths.
Yes. So just one other quick question is the avatar of synthesis and the spirit of peace, they are extra planetary anyway.
Mhm.
They may and would we be able to postulate anything about their
Level of initiation.
yes.
Yeah, there are also visiting avatars from other systems, like Sirius. There's a strong connection. And there are avatars from Sirius. For instance, Lords of Karma for the solar system, of which there are four,
Yes.
are Syrian, right? And it would be their initiate level would be Syrian, right? And we participate in the Syrian, initiation as we move up into the ranks. But they would be, high level of serious initiation. That wouldn't be an example of where they're, see, in a sense, they have left their system to work with us. That would be a very sacrificial type of service. that is being given by the lords of karma, because, you know, it would seem to me that they wouldn't have anything to gain, you know, having been able to leave the Syrian system, that they certainly wouldn't have anything to gain here. And my guess is the other great lords that you mentioned, like the Lord of Synthesis, would be along that line as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? Thoughts or questions? Okay, see, we just read this, right? Correspondence. So did we read this? Somebody help me.
Yes.
Yes, we just read it. I thought so. Okay, so all right, and then the question came. So I want to see if there's something, we need to reorient ourselves. I'm just going to reread it. Past solar systems saw the surmounting of the three lowest cosmic physical flame. This is an important short little paragraph viewed from the matter standpoint. And the coordination of the dense threefold physical form in which all life is found. Dense matter, liquid matter, gaseous matter, right? That's the physical plane, the astral plane, and the mental plane, right? A correspondence may be seen here in the work achieved in the three root races. And then I talked about that a little bit for the question. So referencing this recapitulation, which happens through the three root races, DK is probably talking about the third, fourth, and fifth root races. The Lemurian, representing the element earth, the Atlantean, water, because he gives these three, right? Dense matter, liquid, and gaseous. So the Atlantean would represent water, and the Aryan would represent the quote unquote gaseous matter, rather than the actual first, second, and early third root races, which were composed of such a tenuous substance that the fourth kingdom and those root races bore little resemblance to the humanity that evolved out of the latter half of the Lemurian root race. Can we get a reader for this, for two passages on the previous solar system?
Yvonne.
Materialistic psychologists have been dealing with the substance energies and with the instinctual life of the organism. These constitute the sum total of the available energies organized into the form of the automatic physical body, colored as its atoms are by tendencies and qualities developed in a previous solar system. In our solar system, we are arriving at an understanding and a development of the consciousness aspect of divinity, its quality and characteristic, just as instinctual intelligence or automatic activity was the contribution of the earlier manifestation of God, in which the third aspect was dominant. It will now be apparent that the whole process of transmutation, as we can deal with it at present, concerns itself with the two fires which reached a higher stage of perfection in a past solar system. A, the fire of an atom in its twofold aspect, internal and radiatory, and B, the fires of mind.
Okay, so they're two very different quotes, but I thought this was quite a look into the nature of what he calls materialistic psychology, right? It really has to do with the instinctual side of life, right? Working on purely personality level aspect. That doesn't mean every psychologist is a material psychology. Jung really worked with, you know, the idea of the oversoul and the unseen worlds were definitely a part of his process and his therapy. But there still is, I would place the Freudian psychologist, for instance, in this group, and just, you know, what is considered psychotherapy would largely have to do with working with what he calls here instinctual intelligence. But what he's really doing is defining the three fires that are active in this instinctual intelligence. And he gives those three fires here. Okay. Next up, we have the first of two footnotes referenced by the term the first three root races. So we're going to get an exegesis on root race here. Could we get a reader, please?
And Veronica.
Root race. The secret doctrine teaches us that in this evolution all round, on this planet, the Jivatma, the human, passes through 7 main types of root races. In the case of the two earliest, as the Adamic and the Hyperborean, the forms installed were astral and etheric respectively. Huge and indefinite, they were with a low state or outward going consciousness exercised through the one sense, hearing, possessed by the first race, or through the two senses, hearing and touch, possessed by the second. But with the third race, the Lemurian, a denser and more human type was evolved, this being preferred to the fourth or Atlantean race. The fifth race, the Aryan, is now running its course on this globe concurrently with a large part of the fourth race and a few remnants of the third. For it must be noted that although each race gives birth to the succeeding race, will over time coexisting for many ages. Of the existing peoples, the Tatars, Chinese, and Mongolians belong to the fourth race, the Australian Aborigines and the Hottentots to the third.
Thank you, Veronica.
Thank you.
So here's a chart illustrating the information from the footnote, showing the root races of our Earth globe, which is globe D. The fourth round is shown here at upper right. So starting at the upper left, we have the Adamic root race, composed of astral matter and whose single sense was hearing. Then the Hyperboreans, composed of etheric matter whose senses include hearing and touch. Presumably touch became available because they became etheric beings. Then the Lemurians, who were the first dense physical root race, followed by, it's actually later in the Lemurian race that they became dense, followed by the Atlantean and Aryan root races. The term Hottentot refers to a certain group of indigenous South African peoples and is now considered a derogatory term. They are now called Khoisan or Khoisans, I don't know. Probably more like Khoisan. It's my belief that since decay's time, there are many fewer pure third race types incarnating through these indigenous groups because they have all these groups have become increasingly influenced by more advanced civilizations. And so you don't have that isolation where a third root race type could effectively evolve that lower level of consciousness. Okay, see a hand?
What are Tartars?
Let's see, if I remember right, I think they have to do with the Mongolian group, which is north of Tibet. I'd have to look it up. Let's see. Let's see if I can pull it up. I'm going to look it up for you. Here we go. Tartar. Central Asian peoples, including Mongols and Turks. So yeah, under the leadership of Genghis Khan, well, that was a specific group, but as a race, it would be these Central Asian peoples. Yeah.
Thank you.
They make a great sauce. Okay. Let's see.
Goes with fish.
Yeah, and that's part of that earlier root race thinking, Okay. Any thoughts or questions about any of this? This is a fascinating section on root races. Here, let's go back up here. Yeah. This is secret doctrine stuff, right? But when DK includes it in his own footnotes, to me, that's the stamp of approval. That means you can really, it is part of the truth of the secret doctrine. At least that's my take on it. I don't know who compiled these footnotes. I doubt DK himself did it. Probably Alice that chose the footnotes, but I just don't know about that. Okay, so next up, the first half of the second footnote. Can we get a reader? This is quite different. Reader, please.
Okay.
In the coordination of the monadic, atmic, and Buddhic vehicles of the heavenly man, the vehicles of spiritual life, the higher esoteric correspondence to the prana flowing through the lower reflection, the etheric physical body, the point of synthesis is always on the atomic subplane, and the six merge and become the seventh. In this solar system, the plane of synthesis is not included in the evolutionary scheme. It is the plane of gathering in and of pralaya. In the earlier system, the fourth etheric was in this position. It was to the evolving units of that period what the atomic plane is now, the highest point of achievement. The goal for all was the Buddhic plane or the fourth cosmic ether.
Thank you. Okay, so if you'd like, you can follow, I'm going to reread this as it's next to the chart here. So you can follow the chart as I read this first section, which illustrates what I'm reading. In the coordination of the monadic, atmic, and Buddhic vehicles of the heavenly man, the vehicles of spiritual life, the higher esoteric correspondence to the prana flowing through the lower reflection, the etheric physical body, the point of synthesis is always on the atomic subplane, and the six merge and become the seventh. So it's true here, the six merge to become the seventh, and it's true in the entire cosmic physical plane for a heavenly man where the six merge and become the seventh. Okay, for both a heavenly man and a human being, coordinating the second, third, and fourth etheric subplanes, whether here or here, results in synthesis on the atomic or UDI subplanes, at which time the six lower subplanes merge into the atomic subplane. Is that clear? Any thoughts about that?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so the atomic plane, the first one that's atomic, does not exist till these three merge?
It does not.
They create the first atomic plane by merging. It's not in existence before that?
No, that's not quite accurate, though you could say that from a certain perspective. What it means is that it comes into the awareness of the one who has done the synthesizing, right? So, if through the synthesizing the second, third, and fourth physical subplanes here, the initiate comes into awareness of the highest plane. It exists. I mean, it's there, right? But in terms of the awareness of the one undergoing the initiation. For the heavenly man, the same thing happens. The second and third and fourth subplanes are synthesized, leading to awareness on the divine plane. Now, this is also what happens with the seventh initiate. That's why the seventh initiate is one who has planetary consciousness, because they synthesize these three subplanes in order to become aware on this subplane.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, next. In this solar system, the plane of synthesis is not included in the evolutionary scheme. Okay, so just going back one, these synthetic planes are not part of our process of evolution. They're really, it's where you go in pralaya. That is that place between incarnations, or the result of having done the evolutionary work, right? You always go to the plane just farther than the three planes that you've synthesized, okay? The goal for all, let's see, let's get back here. It is the plane of gathering in and of pralaya. So these two planes that are with arrows by them are the planes of gathering in and of pralaya. In the earlier system, the fourth etheric was in this position. It was to the evolving units of that period what the atomic plane is now. Fourth etheric, remember, is the Buddhic plane, the highest point of achievement. The goal for all was the Buddhic plane, or the fourth cosmic etheric. So the Uddie plane is not included in the evolutionary scheme because evolution depends on manifestation through the form aspect. This is also why the monad is on the second rather than the first subplane of the cosmic physical plane in this solar system. Pralaya, you may remember, is an unmanifested state of rest and assimilation that takes place between cycles of evolutionary activity. This pralaic plane of non-activity, sometimes called the day be with us, was on the Buddhic plane in the previous solar system. This was where the whole third or first, depending on how you're numbering, how the previous solar system, this is where the pralaic level was at that time, because it's beyond the three planes that make up the physical plane, and that entire solar system was oriented towards the coordination of these three planes. That was the work done. Therefore, its pralaya was on the plane above that, right? That's the highest possible achievement, was the higher mental subplanes in that solar system. And this only for their highest initiates, who now find themselves in the ranks of the highest 8 of the hierarchies, mostly in these higher 4 and 5. Because they graduated beyond the need to participate in a cosmic physical solar system altogether. Okay, let's take a look at the second half of the second footnote. Can we get a reader, please?
Janet.
Three other planes are the goal now: the Buddhic, Atmic, and Monadic. Each times 3 planes and their eventual synthesis. In the future solar system, the cosmic physical Atmic ether, the plane of Adi in the system now, will be the starting point, and the 3 planes to be dominated will be the 3 lowest cosmic astral planes. Man starts in where he leaves off, with cosmic physical matter perfected. His lowest body, therefore, will be the monadic, or the body of the second cosmic ether. As this will not be then counted as a principle any more than the three lower physical body of the present day man is recognized as a principle. The present solar system will see the surmounting of the three next cosmic physical planes, the fourth, third, and the second ethers, and the coordination of the cosmic ether body.
Okay, so let's make some sense of this. First, three other planes are the goal now: the Buddhic, Atmic, and Monadic. Each time, three planes and their eventual synthesis. So three other planes are now the goal, means that three additional planes were added to the evolutionary ladder at the beginning of our current solar system. Quote, each time, three planes and their eventual synthesis means that with each successive solar system, three more subplanes are added to the evolutional ladder to be synthesized in the plane just above those three. So in the previous solar system, the physical, astral, and mental planes were synthesized, and pralaya, after that solar system was over, that state between solar systems, pralaya took place on the Buddhic plane. In this, our solar system, the Buddhic, Atmic, and Monadic subplanes will be synthesized, and pralaya will take place on the highest, or Adi, subplane. And finally, in the next solar system indicated here and here, the three subplanes to be synthesized will be that highest, which is pralaya for this solar system, then the first two subplanes of the cosmic astral plane, right? That will be the goal of synthesis, and then the pralaic, the synthetic plane, will be the fifth, counting from above to below, of the cosmic astral plane. Nothing is really said about these specific subplanes of the astral plane, except this kind of information that in a future solar system, that's what the work will be. Any thoughts about this? Here's the three together. You can see the progression, and it's an astonishing shift, right? From one to the next. Okay, next, in the future solar system, the cosmic physical atomic ether, the plane of Adi in the system now, will be the starting point, and the three planes to be dominated will be the three lowest cosmic astral planes. So I just showed you that. So because the Adi plane is the pralaic plane for this solar system, it will be the lowest of the planes added to the evolutionary ladder during the next solar system, with the fifth subplane of the cosmic astral being the next system's eventual pralaya. Next, man starts in where he leaves off, with cosmic physical matter perfected. His lowest body, therefore, will be the monadic, or the body of the second cosmic ether. This will not then be counted as a principle any more than the threefold lower physical body of present-day man is recognized as a principle. Here we have confirmation that the physical vehicle during the next solar system will manifest on the plane where the monadic vehicle is found in this solar system. Since this level of awareness is the province of an initiate of the sixth degree, we might speculate that this will be the level of average human consciousness at this future time. It's kind of an extraordinary thing to imagine. And it shows how much will be done in this solar system, where that the average humanity will be at the level of the sixth initiate in the next solar system, and then work up from there. Okay, and finally, the present solar system will see the surmounting of the three next cosmic physical planes. We've been over this, the fourth, third, and second ethers, and the coordination of the cosmic etheric body. Again, coordination leads to synthesis, which we're told will take place on the Uddi plane of this solar system. Okay, next up, the third and last subsection of this chapter, entitled The Protective Purpose of the Etheric Body. Can we get a reader for this first passage?
Got some questions, Robert.
Yeah.
Yeah, before we move on, my mind keeps drifting back this idea that when you finish the seventh initiation, you have to move on. It seems almost counterintuitive that once you actually know what you're doing and all the schemes, et cetera, that you have to leave. I understand the idea that there's no more necessarily for the individual to gain, but it seems like there's need of this system. And I don't remember exactly what it says on the Path to Earth service, but it was something like, everybody moves on except a few people, they have to stay around to maintain the functioning of the system, or something like that.
Yeah, that's the first cosmic path is Earth service.
Yeah, so there's some, there's a kind of a balance, it seems, between where you go on in terms of your own progression and maybe what the system is that you're leaving. Think about in a college where the classes will have teaching assistants of people who've already done it. So it just, because otherwise it feels, it's absurd on these levels, but it feels like a selfishness if you're not thinking of what's best for the system.
Well, the statement about that first path is just enough are chosen to maintain the path of evolution for the solar system, just enough. And because, there's need throughout the universe, right? And therefore, we have a prejudice about the need in our solar system. We're kind of, we're sort of solar system centric in our, in our prejudice, right? But from seeing from a wider perspective, there's need everywhere. And so once you reach that level, then, it's always a path of economy in that sense, that the choice is made based on where you can best serve, right?
Sure, but it seems like it kind of makes sense also that those who finish the initiations in this system would actually be the ones most skilled at working with the system.
But
like there's a balance there somehow.
Yeah, but you take the fifth and even starting at the third initiation, the higher initiates with their masters of wisdom, and then the three department heads, they're sixth initiates, and their whole purpose is dedicated to work in this system. You don't have to be a seventh initiate in order to provide the necessary work indicated by that first path of world service, right? So this is a stage beyond that, and we're in a place in our own human unfoldment where there's been so few seventh initiates that they don't really figure into it anyway, except as avatars. Like the Buddha was the Bodhisattva until he passed that baton on to the Christ, right? So, but when they, and in a way, they both have done what you're, they must have got your letter, Robert, because they've held back on taking that seventh initiation. But I think there's also something that literally is occultly imperative, which is that you can no longer get there from here. When you pass that border, you're compelled to move beyond. Just like when you move out of the animal kingdom, you can't work as an animal any longer, helping other animals. It's kind of, to give a kind of lame comparison.
No, that makes sense. It's an interesting analogy. It brings up the sub question is the seventh initiation actually taken in this system, or do you have to leave it to take the system? Because if you take it within the system, unless part of the initiation is driving you out of the system in some fashion, then you're still here. And again, we'll figure this out when we get there. But it's just kind of it was sticking in my mind because it seems that need of a system is always emphasized, and here it seemed to be a little out of balance. That's all.
Well, if you had memorized everything that had been said in all these webinars, you might remember that there's a quote that says, the seventh initiate takes his initiation either within this system or in a comparative locale outside the system. So
I've only memorized the first 35, so that's probably in the
well, you're working on the other, right? I know.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So I think you can take that initiation beyond the boundaries of the solar system, or within it before you move beyond, it would seem. At any rate, good questions. Thanks. Okay, so we're at this new section of a new subsection of a chapter here called the protective purpose of the etheric body. Could we get a reader, please?
Kristen.
Now let us.
Wait a minute.
After,
We just had a couple of hands go, so I don't want to get so far from their orientation. So
Yeah,
yes.
actually, they were up. Okay. Tom.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, just what Robert says was a nice topic. So I just wondered, so what is the purpose of it all? So isn't the purpose that all those monads will be self-sufficient and they will get the capability, and they are not so directed from above? So it seems that it's not poor directing of the system to leave it. It's like when you are in let's say a big corporation that would be idle. So you are a boss, but then those that are subordinate to you, then they grow, and the purpose is that they will grow more and more. So you cannot pamper them forever. You have to go and leave them the initiative and the possibilities to evolution. So it's the building the system that way. So it doesn't seem selfish. It seems quite wise organization. That's all that came into my mind.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Yeah, I mean, obviously, and Robert acknowledged this, that the whole concept of selfishness, is left behind way earlier. Like at the third initiation, it's really abandoned altogether. You become group conscious. Selfishness, as we understand it, is no longer even possible. So we're not talking actually about selfishness, right? But there's some interesting teachings around this line. DK also says that when somebody leaves, for instance, you're only allowed to stay on this first path in world service on this planet for a certain amount of time, and then you're kicked out. You got to go on, right? And when you go on, those ranks are filled by the people beneath that great being, whoever that is. So everyone is pulled up. Well, if you look at this energetically, you see that this is the plan, right? That you know, those heads of hierarchy and higher leave the system, and therefore there is an occult drawing up, energetic drawing up that pulls us all towards those initial positions and eventually up through the ranks to the higher positions. So you could look at that really as kind of like the law of attraction. If we let me go out of this and go back to this, see where are we at here, page 83. I want to go back to this. Slide on the to show the hierarchies. Oh, come on. I know I showed a slide of the hierarchies, right? I did, didn't I? There it is. Okay, so this slide, these are the hierarchies within here. Let me get back into full view here. So these are the hierarchies within our solar system, these lower 7. This one is on the verge of moving beyond. And then these highest 4 have passed beyond solar systemic functioning, right? So this puts a name and a face and some symbols on those who pass beyond. Now, these belong to the previous solar system, right, to reach this high level. But the first 3 of the hierarchies associated with the second solar system have not. They're still, and this 5th hierarchy is in between, right? It's at the point of graduating beyond onto the cosmic astral plane. That's actually what determines moving beyond the cosmic physical plane, higher solar system, right? So these 3 would be made up of extremely high beings. If you read these, divine flames, divine lives, lions of life, sons of necessity. Now, sons of necessity is a term for a logos, So this is that level of being, right? So you pass out of this 4th hierarchy, which is the human monadic hierarchy, out of the system into comparable levels to these higher hierarchies. Okay.
Yeah, my point was just that this is very wisely arranged, because if the purpose of the whole system is that those monads will one day become omnipotent and omniscience, so they have to learn to do it on all levels, and so you don't put the energy where it's not needed anymore for the purpose of the system.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I'll just say that the law of economy always reigns, right? So that the best use of energy is employed. Actually,
Yes.
glad you asked that question, Robert, because it brought forth a real needed discussion about that. Yeah. Okay, let's. Anybody else? Any other questions before we step up to this new section? Okay.
Yeah, I think Magda had her hand up, but I don't know if she's still interested in saying something, and then Mira said something.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The protective purpose of the etheric body, this one.
Yes.
Now let us, after this somewhat lengthy digression, leave things cosmic and incomprehensible and come down to practical evolution and to the study of the matter of man's etheric body and of the harm that may ensue to him should that body, through the breaking of the law, no longer perform its protective function. Let us see first of all what those protective functions are. First, the etheric web acts as a separator or a dividing web between the astral and the dense physical body. Second, it circulates the inflowing vitality or pranic fluid and carries on its work in 3 stages.
Thank you. Okay, so after an introductory paragraph, which suggests that harm may come to one who loses the protection of the etheric web, but this only happens through a breaking of the law. DK gives us a review of the etheric body's two primary functions. We've spent actually many, many pages looking at this, right? Almost since the beginning. And these two functions are protection and pranic circulation, right? So let's continue. Can we get a reader?
Yeah. But, Miri asks, before this, Miri asks, could this be the case of some bodhisattvas? It is said that Kuan Yin gave up on moving up her evolution in deep compassion to help humanity.
Right, and refusing to move beyond would be to not take an initiation, right? Not take an initiation that would force one beyond the ring past knot of the solar system. So they would hold back on that, completely self-sacrificial in terms of their own goals, but they're only allowed to do that for a given time. Now that's, the Buddhists talk about this, holding the door open until the last sentient being crosses the threshold, before passing across that threshold themselves. Well, that threshold is, to put an occult spin on it, it's the seventh initiation that takes you beyond that threshold. So they hold that open. Now, in the case of someone like Sanat Kumar as a planetary logos, he took the seventh human initiation, in previous Manvantars, but he still is in that place of holding off on before taking the next cosmic initiation, because we make up his body, right? Remember, we're centers in his body, and therefore we are part of his process of becoming, and therefore he must be in tune with that process himself. Anyone else? Okay, reader, please.
Kirsten, now really.
The first stage is that when the pranic fluid and solar radiations are received and circulated 3 times around the triangle, thence being distributed to the periphery of the body, animating and vitalizing all the physical organs and conducing to the automatic subconscious workings of the body of dense matter. When perfectly accomplishing its object, it protects from disease, and the ills of the flesh are unknown to the man who absorbs and distributes prana with accuracy. This hint is recommended to all physicians, and when properly comprehended, will result in a basis change in medicine, from a curative to a preventive foundation.
Thank you. So this first sentence reviews info from the previous chapter, goes all the way back, which details the reception, assimilation, and transmission of prana. We spent quite a while there. The second sentence describes how dependent we are on the correct assimilation of prana to be healthy and disease-free. And he gives this little hint to future physicians, right? That once this concept is comprehended, that prana is essential for health, that all of medicine could shift from reactive or curative to having a preventive foundation. Let's continue. Reader, please.
Miri.
The second stage is that in which the pranic fluid begins to blend with the fire at the base of the spine and to drive that fire slowly upwards, transferring its heat from the centers below the solar plexus to the three higher centers, that of the heart, the throat, and the head. This is a long and slow process when left to the unaided force of nature. But it is just here that, in a few cases, a quickening of the process is permitted in order to equip workers in the field of human service. This is the object of all occult training. This angle of the matter we will take up in still greater detail when we handle our next point of Kundalini and the spine.
Thank you. Okay, so with this paragraph, we really turn a corner into a new subject that we'll be on for some time. Okay, so first up, the second stage is that in which the pranic fluids begin to blend with the fire at the base of the spine and to drive that fire slowly upwards, transferring its heat from the centers below the solar plexus to the three higher centers, that of the heart, the throat, and the head. So in this second stage, DK introduces a new function for pranic fluids. Not only is prana essential for the continued vivification of the etheric body, it is also, we're here being told, the agency for raising the Kundalini fire, which occurs as a result of three transferences from the sacral center to the throat, the solar plexus to the heart, and finally the base of the spine to the head center. Next, this is a long and slow process when left to the unaided force of nature. But it is just here that in a few cases, a quickening of the process is permitted in order to equip workers in the field of human service. This is the object of all occult. So for all but a few, those who make the Herculean effort to purify their threefold form nature, the sole purpose of prana is the vivification and maintenance of the physical body. So for the great mass of humanity, that's its purpose, right? Over the coming eons of natural human progression, pranic stimulation of the Kundalini will slowly, very, very slowly unfold. But until that time, of all the occult practices, the unsupervised raising of the Kundalini is the most dangerous practice you can undergo. So did somebody break in with a question, or was that just an accidental?
Just an unmuted, yeah.
Okay, all right. So could we get a reader for this description? This dire warning is what I should say.
As usually interpreted by the ignorant esotericist in the various occult groups, the Kundalini fire is something which must be raised. And when it is raised, all the centers will then come into functioning activity, and the channels up and down the spine will be cleared of all obstruction. This is a dangerous generalization and a reversal of the facts. The Kundalini fire will be raised and carried up into heaven when all the centers are awakened and the channels up the spine are unimpeded. This removal of all obstruction is the result of the livingness of the individual centers which, through the potency of their life, themselves are effective in destroying all hindrances and obstructions. They can burn up all that hinders their radiation. What usually happens in those accidental cases which do so much harm is that the aspirant, through his ignorant curiosity and by an effort of the mind, not of the spiritual will, but purely as an expression of personality will, succeeds in arousing the lowest of the three fires, the fire of matter, fire by friction. This produces a premature burning and destroys the etheric web in the etheric body. These circular discs or webs are to be found between each pair of the centers up the spine and also in the head. They are normally dissipated as purity of life, the discipline of the emotions, and the development of the spiritual will are carried forward.
Okay, any thoughts about this? Any questions? Okay. By the way, this illustration occurs in the book right on the page just before this material. Okay, next up, the angle of the matter we will take up in still greater detail when we handle our next point of, this angle of the matter we will take up in still greater detail when we handle our next point of Kundalini and the spine. So Kundalini and the spine is the name of the next division of section 1. When we get to it, we will have done one division in this class. We're in the middle of, towards the end of division C at this point. So it's coming up in about 10 pages. Still a few webinars off. Next up, can we get a reader, please?
Yeah, before that, Magda, did you have a question? Your mic's open. Okay. Nope. Let's see. What was that? NASA.
The third stage is that in which active radiatory matter or prana is blended ever more perfectly with the fire latent in matter. This results, as will be brought out later, in certain effects. It produces a quickening of the normal vibration of the physical bodies so that it responds with more readiness to the higher note of the ego, and causes a steady rising of the blending fires through the threefold channel in the spinal column. In the second stage, this vitalizing blended fire reaches a center between the lower part of the shoulder blades, which is the point of conjunction and of complete merging of the fire from the base of the spine and the fire circulating along the pranic triangle.
Thank you. So first, the third stage is that in which active radiatory matter or prana is blended ever more perfectly with the fire latent in matter. This results, as will be brought out later, in certain effects. Okay, DK introduced this topic back on page 108. Could we get a reader for this?
Robert.
Much of this is hidden in the fabled story of the war between fire and water, which has its basis in the reaction of the fire latent in matter to the fire emanating outside of matter and playing upon it, prana. In the interval that has to elapse while the two are in process of blending come those periods where, through karmic inheritance, reception is unstable and distribution inequitable. As the point of race equilibrium is reached, so planetary equilibrium will likewise be attained. And in planetary attainment will come the equilibrium that must mutually take place between the solar planets. When they attain a mutual balance and interaction, then the system is stabilized and perfection reached. The even distribution of prana will parallel this balancing in the man, in the race, in the planet, and in the system. This is but another way of saying that uniform vibration will be achieved.
So it gives you a little indication of how DK works. He introduces the subject, he gives you some information about it, and then he cycles back to it. And, the subconscious, it builds on that subconscious information, gradually creating an understanding of his subject matter. So, okay. So blending ever more perfectly results in an equilibrium that allows for the escape of the lower principle into the higher. Next, it produces a quickening of the normal vibration of the physical body so that it responds with more readiness to the higher note of the ego. So as prana blends with the latent fire of matter, as radiatory fire and inherent or latent fire, a vibratory quickening occurs that serves to align one with our souls, the egoic body. DK often associates the word quickening with initiation, which we can assume happens as a result of the blending of these two fires. Different stages of this blending are the result in the earlier initiations. Next, and cause a steady rising of the blending fires through the threefold channel in the spinal column. In esoteric healing, DK tells us that the threefold channel refers to the etheric spinal column, not the reflection of these channels in the dense physical body. Back on page 99, DK points out that, quote, the center should be pictured as whirling vortices with a closely woven threefold channel passing from each center to the other and forming an almost separate circulatory system. And then finally, in the second stage, this vitalizing blended fire reaches a center between the lower part of the shoulder blades, which is the point of conjunction and of complete merging of the fire from the base of the spine and the fire circulating along the pranic triangle. It will be remembered how one point of this triangle originates there. So you have pranic fire and radiate, which is radiatory fire, and the latent fire in matter reaching this point of conjunction between the lower part of the shoulder blades and merging, right? And this last sentence, it will be remembered how one point of this triangle originates there, suggests that the center between the shoulder blades, it acts as a point of conjunction for the Kundalini and pranic fires. So these are the same as the upper point of the pranic triangle, or is in its immediate proximity. Do you remember we read about the pranic triangle for some time, that the idea of the circulating fire between this point between the shoulder blades and the point at the farther part of the spleen is two of those points in the triangle. Well, that point in the shoulder blades it's either the same as this assimilating point, or it's right near it. Later in a treatise on cosmic fire, TCF gives more info on this center between the shoulder blades. Can we get a reader, please?
Yvonne.
The various triangles become vivified and proceed to increased activity in due geometrical progression, whilst the center between the shoulder blades, the converging point for certain fires, becomes active. This marks a definite stage in the process of transferring the fires into the higher centers. Roughly speaking, this period of the transference of the heat or energy of the lower centers into the higher may be divided into two parts. First, that in which the centers in the lower part of the body, those below the diaphragm, are transferred to the centers in the higher part of the torso. These centers in the torso are three in number: the heart, the throat, and the center between the shoulder blades. It must here note that the throat center is situated in the lower part of the throat and properly belongs to the torso and not to the head. It should also be stated here that the center between the shoulder blades is not a sacred center, but is of a temporary nature and is created by the aspirant himself during the process of transference.
So this is the only other writing from DK on this particular center that is between the lower part of the shoulder blades, that I could find anyway, referenced as such. And it's interesting here, we get this additional information that it's a point of assimilation, right? Of a unification of the lesser fires. And it's created, it's not a sacred center, but it's created by the aspirant himself. Okay, next up, could we get a reader, please?
Francis, could I say something?
Sure, always.
Okay, the point between the shoulder blades, Michael Robbins used to tell us that this is where the solar prana comes, the devas, the golden devas, the solar
Right.
prana. The best place to get prana would be on your back, for the girls, where your bra would be come together, is to go out in the sun and to sit with the sun, on your back and try to absorb the prana there, the golden prana from the sun. So he always told us that's where you vivify your body.
Right. Well, that's the highest point on the pranic triangle. The other 2 points being one just below the solar plexus and the other the spleen, right? Those, and prana circulates between those points. But you're right. That's the point where the solar angels actually direct the prana, and then it circulates 3 times around the pranic triangle and then goes to the far side of the spleen. Those are his words, not mine. And where it can then be assimilated by the physical body. So you're right. Now, what's interesting here, this is another, this seems to be another center that he's describing here. Either that or the center is doing dual duty. This center in between the lower part of the shoulder blades is this place of synthesis for the raising of the kundalini. That's a different function than the circulating of the prana. It's he doesn't tell us directly that it's a different or the same center, but it's in a very similar location. Also, the heart center is in that location as well. So there's a lot going on right in that place between the shoulder blades center. Anyone else? Okay. We are going to pull the plug right here. We'll pick up with this reading next time. So let's see here. The next webinar is a Secret Teachings of All Ages on the first Sunday. I think it's the 4th or the 5th. I don't remember exactly. And followed by a pre-full moon webinar. That's on the 5th. And then after that, we have the next Treatise on Cosmic Fire webinar. That's as far as I can take it. You can
next one is March 10th, TCF.
Oh, okay, great, thanks. Yeah, so that's the next TCF webinar. So, any final comments, words of wisdom that you want to?
Francis, I just wanted to ask you, like at the next class, because I didn't get to go back to the previous page, this whole concept of the temporary center, which is absorbed. Just talk about it sort of under the law of intermediaries and how that might work when we have these, these temporary, almost like a chakra center that comes into being for a specific purpose. And then it's absorbed as the Kundalini fire rises and another center is activated, then it no longer becomes necessary, and then it dissolves. Or
yeah, I think that's accurate. I think it probably literally dissolves. It's first question is, what's it made out of? You know, if you formulate it yourself, are you creating it out of etheric matter, or does it just come together as a result of the radiation of the three fires, of the lower fires, right? And becomes the natural place for synthesizing those fires. You know, he doesn't go into the mechanics beyond what he says here of that. You know, we literally have just read between that one quote that I this quote and what we're reading in the book now. That's it on this particular center. But most interesting to me is the idea that it's possible for the disciple, at this point, the initiate, to create a center in order to synthesize these two fires. There are a lot of fiery triangles going on at this stage, including one in the head that takes place between centers in the head, and all these eventually merge into one point, and it allows the escape from the. It results in the raising of the Kundalini and the escape of that final etheric web. Right. Okay, you all. Thanks for attending, and we'll see you next time.